calls that you just can't even do on Wall Street. So I think we're building a better Wall Street using cryptocurrencies. But everyone who participates in that doesn't necessarily want to take on the volatility of these cryptocurrencies. So we've created these things called stable coins, which track the value of the US dollar, so that when you're trading, for example, you can still do it in dollar denominated terms. And this is a tricky thing, because the moment you're now trying to track some asset in the real world, like dollars, then you have to basically peg the value somehow to something that exists in the real world. And cryptocurrencies do best when everything is on the blockchain, when everything is electronic and digital and controlled by computers in the cloud. So these stable coins have come along that mimic the value of the US dollar. And the best known ones are Tether, USDC, which is Coinbase's coin, and MakerDAI, which is an algorithmically stable coin. But there's no free lunch in life.
Pause for 1 second. Well, should people think of, what would be a comparable that people might be more familiar with? It's not an index, it's like an ETF, or how would you think about, is there another?
These are digital dollars. These are designed so that you can live in crypto land. This is living on a blockchain. It's math-based code, but really your value is pegged to dollars. So it's not going up or down with Bitcoin. It's just worth $1 all the time. So if you want to hold $1 in crypto land, the way you do it is by buying one of these so-called stable coins. But all my tweet was observing is that there's no free lunch. What you're actually doing underneath is you have crypto, and crypto is incredibly volatile, and you're trying to convert a volatile asset into a stable asset. So there has to be a cost for that. What is that cost?
Well, it's like the subprime mortgage crisis,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. There's no free lunch. So what is that cost? And all I was saying is that the three main categories of stable coins today, they each impose one or more of these costs. And so one cause is fraud risk, where people suspect this of Tether, where like actually this thing says it's backed by dollars, but it's not actually backed by dollars. I don't know if this company has dollars underneath. So you have to kind of take their word for it. So now you're trusting.
Underneath, meaning they would have actual physical dollars,
Correct.
Much like you would have physical gold.
Correct. Yeah. So for every Tether they issue you, they claim to have $1 somewhere, but what if they don't? And you just don't know. So you're trusting them, and there could be fraud underneath. I'm not saying there is. I have no evidence, but that you're basically now back to the trusted third-party model that exists in just putting your money in the bank. The second kind is where you're dealing with someone like Coinbase or some company that is well known and trusted and is regulated, but then it's no different than holding normal dollars. There's censorship risk, where if the government says, hey, we don't like this character, seize their bank account, Coinbase can turn off your USDC account and your stablecoin has basically been seized. You're no longer decentralized and sovereign like you are with Bitcoin. And the last kind of risk is a blow-up risk. So something like a Maker, it's collateralized, but it's collateralized with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so what they're hoping is that the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum won't move so drastically that the peg breaks and you lose money on your so-called stablecoin. It's just an observation. There's no free lunch. And so if you're trying to create this mythical stable currency out of thin air in what is inherently a very volatile space, you have to pay for it. And people think today they're not paying for it, they're just getting these free crypto stable dollars, or they're getting the stability aspect for free, but they're not. They're either taking on fraud risk or censorship risk or blow-up risk or some combination of them.
So if you're advising, and this is not financial advice, this is just two friends talking, obviously for informational purposes only, but if you're talking to a friend who has a fair amount of savings or investable capital, and they say, Naval, I want to do something with crypto. How can I get started, or how should I get started? What do you say to them? Because there's such a broad spectrum of options. It's still, even though it's been simplified a lot, crypto is still quite confusing to
very complicated.
To people who are very smart, I would consider it's still quite confusing.
Incredibly confusing. Yeah, it's a domain of mathematicians, hackers, tech entrepreneurs, and a few people who really dig in. But it's still too hard to handle, manage. It's dangerous. Like, I can't hold my own crypto. I have to stick it inside funds and custodians because I'm a known public figure, and it's a bearer asset. So ironically, I can't actually bear.
It's dangerous. You don't hold it because you would be
I'd be
kidnap risk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a bearer asset. So, you don't want to bear a bearer asset. You have to put it inside vaults, the equivalent of Goldman Sachs in this space. So like there are custodians, like Anchorage is, an amazing one. There's BitGo, there's Coinbase. So there are these large custodians, or CoinList, which is a company I helped start, who can hold onto your crypto assets for you. But that's not really the point of crypto. The point of crypto is to be your own bank. So if the government is coming to seize money, or if they're printing lots of it, you can always withdraw withdraw your crypto assets from these organizations, and you can carry it yourself. You can put on your laptop, which is kind of crazy and risky and hard. You can do it through a hardware wallet like a Ledger or a Trezor, which are pretty well-known hardware wallets, where you have a small, specific device that's designed just for carrying crypto. But you have to understand, you're replacing the banking system. You're literally replacing the government, all the guns and the police that back up the banking system. You're replacing all that and all the control that comes with it. So of course it's going to require some level of sophistication. You're literally building your own Swiss bank. So it is quite complicated. Where to start? Well, I don't like giving people buy signals, because if you're going to be a good investor, you also have to have your own conviction, because then you'll know when to sell. If you call me and ask me when to buy, are you going to call me every day and say, should I sell? Should I sell? Should I sell? Right? You don't know that.
It's a really, really important
right. So you have to fundamentally understand it yourself. So I would say the first thing is go down the crypto rabbit hole. Listen to the interview we did with Nick Szabo. Go online and start reading up on Bitcoin, read up on Ethereum, read up on the privacy coins like Zcash and Monero. Learn about the different high-level stuff in the crypto space. Decide how much exposure that you want. Go buy it at a CoinList or a Coinbase or what have you. Figure out which custodian you want to use. Put it somewhere safe, probably in the cloud, unless you really know what you're doing. And if you really know what you're doing, then you can use one of the hardware wallets or one of the offline schemes. Make sure that it is protected in case that you're attacked or kidnapped or someone comes to your house or steals your computer. You have to cover all those base cases. So it's not easy, but you're literally creating extra sovereign money. You're creating money where, if you ever have to flee the country, like the Jews had to leave Vienna back in the 1930s, you're not like scrambling for gold. You're using crypto. You're not, if you're living in some country where they tend to seize all the money in your bank account, then you have unseizable money. If you're worried about hyperinflation as we print too many dollars, then you have a hedge against the MMT and all the various excuses that they're going to use to print money. Probably the scariest thing that happened in 2020 from a financial perspective is both the Republican and the Democratic Party figured out that, actually, we can just print lots and lots of money. And the U.S. has this reserve currency status with the dollar, where most of our dollars, I think something like 70%, are held by foreigners, because the trusted reserve currency of the world. They use it for trading oil. They use it for settling international transfers. They use it just to kind of hide money. They use it to protect money from their local inflationary authorities. So because of that, when we print a dollar, 70% of that inflationary effect is borne by the rest of the world, not borne by us. And so the U.S. government's kind of figured this out, and we printed $6 trillion to fight the coronavirus. And so now both parties can agree that they can just print money to get out of any problem that they're in. A great tweet that I saw was somebody wrote that now we know what would happen if aliens were to invade the Earth. The Fed would just lower interest rates. The Fed would cut interest rates, right? And so, unfortunately, that's just the situation we're in. So they're going to keep doing that until at some point the rest of the world throws in the towel and says, this dollar thing is not working for us. And what we rely upon is that the European euro or the Chinese renminbi and these other currencies are in worse situations. But that's not necessarily always true. I think there are well-managed currencies like the Swiss franc and the Singaporean dollar. There's also hard assets like gold and crypto and real estate, and even the run-up in tech stocks at some level is because equities are a tax-efficient inflation hedge, or a relatively tax-efficient inflation hedge, because someone like Google can just raise prices and they don't have to hire more people because they're a monopoly. They can lay off half their engineers and the company will work just fine. So people are realizing this, and there's a flight into hard assets to get away from inflation. And crypto is one of the few places where you can really put your money in and defend against something like the dollar reserving its reserve currency status. And these are black swans. It's very hard to talk about black swans because obviously since the dollar became the US reserve currency, it hasn't lost the status, even when we went off the gold standard. But at the same time, the pound sterling used to be the reserve currency of the world, and it lost its status at one point. Money used to be gold back, and that went away. So it's not inconceivable that'll happen. And if it were to happen, then you would basically have the true reckoning. Then our ability to print our way out of recessions would go away. You would probably have an inflationary collapse in the US, and you would just see kind of our global economic system start breaking down. In those scenarios, crypto does really well, assuming the internet stays up, right? There are scenarios where the internet goes down too, and then all hell breaks loose, and you better have golden guns, but we're not talking about that. It depends.
Cigarettes and tampons to trade for your water.
Yeah, that's right. Well, bullets are the ultimate one, right? As we also see in 2020, we have 5 million new gun owners in the U.S. But it just depends how much of a prepper you are, how paranoid you want to be, and how many standard deviations out you want to handle risk. But I think this is the year where a lot of people feel like risks that were inconceivable have suddenly gotten pulled in.
Let me ask